All right, what is going on, guys? You have tuned into another episode of Recovery Survey Live. I'm Brett, and I'm going to be your host tonight, as well as JR. Excited to have you guys on the show. As a reminder, if you guys are interested, we also release the audio version of tonight's show as a podcast that drops about an hour or so after the live video is over. And I also have another podcast called Recovery Survey that are about 30-minute episodes, and those come out every Wednesday. So if you're already on the podcast app, go ahead and subscribe to that one as well. And if you want to help us out, it would be really cool if you guys would leave us a review and a five-star review. That really helps us when people are searching for recovery podcasts or searching for content. It helps us show up. So that's a little something you can do to help us grow the show and help spread the message of recovery. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and switch to this three-person view and bring on tonight's guest, Kate. And she is a RN. She's a columnist at the Sober Curator. She does a lot of awesome stuff. So welcome to the show, Kate.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on the show.
Oh, great.
If you wouldn't mind, maybe we could just jump in and you could tell us a little bit about your story and kind of give us an idea of who you are.
Sure, yeah. So, my name's Kate. I live in Olympia, Washington. My sobriety date is 2/10/18. So I am getting close to 4 years sober. In February, it'll be 4 years. Yeah, you can. I'm not counting, right? I'm not counting. But yes, I'm counting. So, gosh, I feel like I could talk forever, but I'll just kind of give you the cliff notes. I basically got sober in the rooms of AA. I found some local meetings, and I was desperate. I was completely desperate. I was completely broken. And I started going to AA. I got a sponsor, and I went to AA, I think every day for a couple of years. And I recently started going to meetings that were sort of open forum, online meetings. And I recently started going to. There's a little feedback there. Got it? Okay.
I went ahead and muted you, JR. You're giving us a little feedback.
Oh, I'm like, that's me. So I recently started going to some online meetings when the pandemic hit. But if you want me to walk back into my story of sort of active addiction and what brought me to recovery, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Okay. So I started drinking sort of late. I think I started drinking in my mid-20s, probably maybe 24. I was an RN. I was married. I was sort of an overachiever type. I wanted to accomplish. I had this list of all these things I wanted to accomplish as an adult. And I sort of found I found some solace in wine in my mid-20s. I was working hospital work, and I began drinking sort of socially. And, I look back now and I know that it was maybe some self-medicating for being sort of a perfectionist and having a lot of anxiety and a lot of depression and things that I was kind of hiding. And basically stupid expectations that I set for myself. And I also struggled with disordered eating. I was restricting. I was over-exercising. I was just beating myself up with all these expectations. So I found wine, and that was my way to chill. And I was sort of a late bloomer, so I had to ask friends, how do you even order wine and what do you drink? And I didn't even know how to fit in the social scene. And my social drinking turned into problematic drinking fairly soon. I couldn't really ever tolerate it. I was never a good drunk. I was never someone that was all that fun. Going out. I got drunk quick. I blacked out a lot. I got sick a lot. I ruined the party a lot. So it was a problem from the beginning, and I only can say that sort of with some hindsight. And I drank through my late 20s. My 30s got to be pretty problematic. I had left bedside nursing and went into pharmaceutical sales, which has a heavy drinking culture. I did a lot of traveling, domestic travel. So I was all over, lots of airplanes, airports, meetings. Drinking was heavily encouraged. And I was never a good drinker. Like I was always an amateur. And so in my 30s, I got more, I guess I would say my problems became more noticeable because a lot of it was like a public display. So you have sort of a witness to your horrible behavior. And I can honestly say in my 30s, I really developed a pretty strong addiction to alcohol, physiologically, psychologically, emotionally, like it became my crutch. And I think I'm sad to say in the end, I thought of wine as like my best friend. It was my social lubricant. It was the way that I felt cool and relaxed and funny and relevant. And of course, I wasn't any of those things while intoxicated. So by the end of my 30s, I had some real consequences. And, what they say, like when they're witnessed consequences, like when someone is present for your horrible behaviors, it's sort of hard to go back from that because someone saw and someone was there. And I remember there was a time when I was in Vegas and I drank so much, I got alcohol poisoning. Later on in my 30s, I ended up getting a DUI. I was speeding and coming home from a concert like at 2 a.m. and I blew like a high blow DUI. Just things started stacking up and I was in really big denial. I did not want to face the fact that I could, be addicted to alcohol and that it just was not my friend. I did not want to face that. And by the end of my 30s, I had so many horrible consequences. I think I had been hospitalized for alcohol poisoning maybe 3 or 4 times. And I just, I went to the emergency room with just like having blacked out and just gotten super sick. And my family started to rally around me. And, of course, during this time, I'm also a really bad employee, right? I'm giving my employers like 20, 30% of what I'm capable of. And, my family kind of staged like a traditional intervention, which we now know doesn't really work. But at the time, they were sort of desperate. And so they got together. And I just remember thinking like, who are you guys to tell me to quit drinking? Like I was in so much denial. And I remember my grandma even drove me to an AA meeting and I was just like, no, I wasn't having it. And by the time I was late 30s, I had divorced and remarried and, I'm, to my current husband, and he didn't realize, I don't think, how bad it was, despite the fact that my family had sort of warned him several times. And so in the first year of our marriage, I was a complete mess. I was going through the physical manifestations of addiction. I was going through withdrawal if I didn't drink. And I would try so hard to quit drinking. I would be able to go 2 weeks and then I would go binge. Sometimes I would make it almost 30 days and then binge. I was losing job after job. I was back into bedside care and nursing. Because of the DUI, nobody in pharmaceuticals would hire me anymore because I couldn't drive a leased vehicle. So, I'm just kind of like destroying my life. And I think the best way I can describe it, and I've said this before, is that quote by Anne Lamott, like I was deteriorating faster than I could lower my standards. It was just one thing after the other. And I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. And my family was just disgusted with me. And my new husband was like appalled that this was the woman that he had married. And toward the very end, I remember I was super proud of myself because I went cold turkey and quit drinking, and I lasted 6 months. And during this time, I didn't know about AA. I didn't know about recovery resources. And you would think that a nurse would know these things, but nurses are just really not trained in this type of stuff. And unless they work in psychiatric medicine, you just don't even, it's not on your radar. So I was working a job in home health. I was super proud of myself that I had quit drinking. And some of my nurse friends recommended that it would probably be a smarter idea for me to take up smoking marijuana because there would be no hangover and I wouldn't be like calling out sick to work and really screwing up my life. So I started smoking marijuana for the first time in like my late 30s, and it just never really helped, but it was something, right? And as someone who was a pretty bad addict, like I couldn't imagine just living a life totally sober. So I'm smoking marijuana at night. I'm showing up at work. I feel like I'm hanging in there. 6 months go by, and I'm in an auto accident in the field going to see a client in home health. And my employer wanted to do an incident report. And of course, that came with a drug screen. And I was really scared that I was going to turn up positive for THC because nurses are not supposed to smoke marijuana. So that was my fear, right? Of all the things that I had done. Oh my God. And so I had a really awesome idea to bring in fake urine to the drug screen and try to pass the test that way. And I look back, I'm embarrassed even talking about this, but I look back and I can't even believe. So I brought in fake urine, but I dropped it in front of the person collecting the specimen. And so I was just totally busted right there. I was completely like, here I am out in the open. I told her what I had done. I got instantly fired. I also got reported to the nursing commission for tampering with the drug screen. And so I got put in a program for nurses that's sort of like drug court, where you get to keep working as long as you meet all these, buckets of compliance. And it's pretty rigorous, right? Like they require random UAs and that you go to treatment and that you go to meetings and that you really do it. Otherwise, they pull you from the field and you can't work. And it was horribly embarrassing because to this day, I have these red letters on my name. And so I'm hoping if you Google me, like this type of stuff comes up and not like my horrible past. Anyway, but my past is what made me, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I got put into a professional program for nurses with substance use issues, and that's a 5-year commitment. And so in a way, I was sort of like, okay, now I'm going to meet some nurses that understand addiction and maybe are in this with me. But I was also sort of embarrassed because I thought, well, what if there are nurses that were diverting drugs or, doing things you see on TV, like slumped over in a hallway. And I didn't see myself that way, although I do now, because I realized that like I was just as sick, if not sicker, because I was trying to hide it so much. And I was, it was clearly really obvious to the people around me. I was just in such denial. And so this was, almost 4 years ago. But I think what really was the turning point for me was it wasn't all these consequences, right? It wasn't the DUI. It wasn't losing all the jobs. It wasn't getting reported to the nursing commission. And you would think that someone would really turn around after all of that. But I took a year off of work from, working as a nurse. And I say I took a year off, but really what I did was I gave up. I became suicidal. I became extremely, extremely depressed, like just swallowed by anxiety. I felt like it was over for me. Like I had just come to the end. I had run out of chances and I was just riddled with guilt and shame. And so much shame. I never thought I would crawl out from under all of the shame. So during this year that I wasn't working as a nurse, I was doing little odd jobs for my parents, and I was extremely depressed. I ended up hospitalized in a psychiatric facility for suicidal ideation. I was basically detained against my will to protect myself from self-harm. I was also pretty manic and by most standards, a little crazy. And I don't use that word lightly, but I was very sick. I hadn't been sleeping or eating. I turned into this person that sort of ruminated on these issues to the point of my own demise. And so I think really the turning point was hitting that psych ward, knowing that I was there because I was ready to take my own life. And I remember sitting in the windowsill. I was in a psych ward up near Seattle, and they have these big giant windowsills that you could actually sit in, and they overlook the city. And all I had was a Bible. And of course it was soft because they didn't let me have anything hard. And I remember sitting in the windowsill, like reading the entire book of Proverbs, because there was some quotes in there about women in faith. And I just remember looking out thinking, like, how did I get here, God? Like, this is me. This is me sitting in a windowsill of a psych ward wearing spice-colored scrubs, like basically a padded room where someone comes and shines a light on me every 15 minutes to make sure I haven't done something to harm myself. And 10 days I was there, and that was every hour by hour I counted. And I remember talking to the nurses and trying to convince them that I was the nurse too. And they were like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Did you take your meds? So it was a really hard time. And when I got out, of course, I couldn't get a nursing job. So after like 15 years as a registered nurse, I took a minimum wage job at the mall during the holidays at Macy's selling bras. And everybody I knew in this small town I live in had to buy some bras during that time. So it was like, here's my story. Just like, what are you doing here? Why are you working at the mall? Doctors I had worked alongside, nurses I had worked alongside. I'm barely making my bills because I have a lifestyle not adjusted to minimum wage. I don't know how to work a cash register. I don't know how to sell a damn bra to save my life. I'm working with 19-year-olds who can completely outdo me at everything. And I was basically not drinking, but I was so mentally ill, and I was just sort of frozen in this sort of paralyzed state where I didn't know what to do with myself. Like, how do you move on from all this? I knew I was in big trouble, but I didn't know how to face it. I didn't know how to face the nursing commission. I just let it sit the way it was. And at one point I even called up the state and asked if I could surrender my nursing license, because I was just so beside myself. And they were like, no, you can't surrender. I mean, you've been a nurse for what? I think at the time it was like 16 years. And I had basically a pretty spotless record. And they were like, no, you have to face this. And so I got in front of a really great nurse practitioner that was like, you can do this. Like, what's stopping you from just getting some recovery and facing this? And through time, I realized that, there was a light at the end. There was a way out. But I knew that involved me sort of radically accepting the fact that I had to get sober and stay sober. And so I started reading books, and, stories are so impactful. And I can see JR's book sort of coming across the screen. And I have to say, I read a quote from the Nagowski sisters who wrote the book Burnout, and they say, stories go where science can't. And I 1000% believe that, because, so many doctors and therapists and people can tell you, and, your family can tell you, but once in a while you come across a story, whether spoken or you read it or you listen to podcasts, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, that's me, right? That's my story. Or I felt that way. And it sort of pushes you forward. And I read some books, from some women that I identified with simply from their emotions, not so much that they were like me. I don't have an Ivy League degree from Harvard, but I read The Recovering by Leslie Jameson and some other really good books. And I remember thinking, why the hell do I think I'm too good to go sit in a church basement and face Alcoholics Anonymous? Like what? And so I started going, and it saved my life, hearing my story and the radical honesty of the people, and how they just embrace you, no matter what. Like no matter what, you're accepted and you're loved, and someone has been there and done that. And so like I said, AA saved my life, and I probably went, almost daily for the first 2 years of sobriety before I finally branched out into sort of open forum meetings when I had sort of, some ground under me, when I felt like, I'd worked the steps with a sponsor and I had some solid recovery, and I wanted to kind of branch out and have some other conversations basically, and work out of some other books besides the big book, and hear some other theories and stories. And I was ready to sort of evolve in my recovery. So, here I am now, and pretty solid in my recovery and doing some really cool things. I did get back into nursing. I got a job after a million years working medical nursing. I got a job in a psychiatric facility, and I thought, well, I've been to one, so I could probably figure this out. And it wasn't so much that as much as it was like I had the empathy and the understanding. That's a type of work that is a calling, it's a calling on top of calling, so it takes sort of like a unicorn to do psychiatric nursing, because it's not glamorous. It's not sexy. You don't get a lot of press for that. There's no show like ER where it's like the psych ward, here's me in a padded room covered with feces, saving lives. No, that you don't see. That's not a show. So I got a job at a psychiatric facility for people in crisis, essentially like I was. And I started out on call. They gave me a chance despite the fact that I had a pretty tattered, past. And I had these red letters on my license, and I was going to be in this monitoring program. And I progressed from on call to full time to now where I am actually the director of nursing of one of the inpatient programs. And I actually opened a program last year. So it's been about a year and a half. I run a long-term psychiatric inpatient program. And it's such a fucking gift. I mean, it's almost unbelievable, like that this is where I am now from where I was. And so it's just, I could not have gotten here without the recovery circles that I was in. And of course, my higher power is God. And, I hit my knees. And so I just, we all say that we're grateful, but I'm in a place where I freaking love my life. And so I get to do some really cool things with my recovery too.
Wow. Are you still in the being monitored? I know
yes.
It was like a 5-year program.
Yep.
So you have a year left.
Yep. So random UAs. So I have this app on my phone, and I check in every day, and I report the meetings I go to. My boss fills out a report on me. It's like drug court. I mean, and they mean business. Like if you slip up, you are pulled from your job until you can prove that you're clean. And at first I was sort of resentful. I was like, why am I still doing this? But it works, right? And what I've learned about, as I study addiction medicine in the work that I do now, it takes about 5 years for people to get to what they consider long-term recovery. And it also helps people to have agreed upon a plan in the beginning, like you will UA. And if you are positive for drugs or alcohol, you will be removed from your job. And the person signs off and says, yes, this is my contract. I agree. Your friends and family, they understand, and that's your life. And so it sort of works. And I get that now. And I've met some freaking amazing people. I would put my money on a sober nurse any day, right? Because those fucking people show up. And I am now a hiring manager, and when people talk about being in recovery, I zoom right in, because I know that we show up. That is what we are taught to do, and that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I mean, I'm a graduate of drug court, so I know what you're talking about.
Drug court alum.
Yeah. I mean, it gave me the accountability and the motivation to get my shit straight.
Yeah. Yeah. And from when I heard people talk about drug court, and they speak really highly of it, even though it was probably some of the more brutal time in their life, it just makes me sort of proud that I am going to say that I graduated from something like that. Even though, if I slip up, I just lose my job and I get in big trouble, but I don't go to jail. But from where I was at emotionally, I felt like worse than jail. I mean, it was, my livelihood, my identity, everything.
That's what addiction does to us.
Yeah.
It breaks us down piece by piece.
Yeah, I was, so today I do a couple things to sort of give back. I'm part of a group called the Sober Mom Squad. It's any woman or anybody who identifies as a woman who also identifies as a mom. I'm a stepmom. My husband has 3 boys. And so I host meetings for them. And what I say is, like, if there's this tree where there's branches and sort of like parts of your life where you could ruin, like, I fell out of the tree and hit every branch before I got to recovery. I was financially ruined, emotionally ruined, physically ruined. My career was ruined. I was just a huge mess. Like I had to go through all these consequences to come to the realization that I had to get sober. Like I just had to. I don't know why I was so stubborn, but that's, so when I lead meetings, I try to convey to women, like, you can be a gray area drinker, or you can be severe. I mean, it doesn't even matter. Like, the things that this does to us, the things that addiction will do, are just unbelievable. Like, you will become someone that you just cannot recognize.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I mean, that's how I was at the end. I remember when I first started dabbling in drugs, it was like, I thought I set ground rules. Like, I'll never do this. I'll never do that. I'll never do it. Like, I'll never steal, if I don't have the money, I just won't use. All that went out the window. And at the end, I'm in Walmart boosting everything inside.
Yeah, I'm carrying in fake urine. I mean, warmed up that I, just the things that I would do. And I could not stop drinking. And so I kind of feel like if I can do it, like anybody can do it. And I know we all say that, but wine was literally my best friend. I'm embarrassed to admit that, but that was my whole, like, it was the most important thing in my life. And so, but I am so much happier now. And I get to do some really cool things. I recently started writing a column for the Sober Curator, which is an online free lifestyle magazine for people in recovery. And it's sort of like a whole bunch of resources, as well as pop culture, as well as fun. There's information on Quit Lit and podcasts. There's, a little bit more serious things. There's some meditation information and just, some of the modalities that we use for recovery. But there's also stuff on mocktails and NA beers. And they do a movie night and just all these different fun things to sort of bring in the recovery community and show that we can live again and that can be fun. And so a lot of sober creatives contribute to it. And it's just been such a fun experience. I write a column called Walk Your Talk, which is sort of like fashion and sobriety. And I write it because a big part of why this is going to sound really bad, but I'm going to be totally honest. As a woman, I didn't want to give up the nightlife. I didn't want to give up the idea that I could go out and sort of see and be seen. I wanted still that bright lights, big city, the glamour of it. And I felt like if I got sober, my whole social life was going to go away. I would have no reason to ever get dressed up or go anywhere. I was never going to be invited anywhere. I was going to live this sort of humdrum, boring life with no friends. I wasn't going to be able to ever like put a cool outfit together and all those things that were super important to me that I really loved. And when I got sober and I really started to find myself again, I realized, and this is sort of the premise for the column, is that I'm just getting ready for my own life now. I stopped getting ready for the bar scene and that part of my life. And now I get ready to just show up for myself. And that can be equally as fascinating and as fun. And the social events and it's just so amazing. So I really want other women to understand, and men to understand that like there can be such a beautiful life after sobriety, and you can still dress yourself and, fancy up and go to events and really show up for yourself in that way, so it's been really fun.
I know. I think I've done more things in my recovery than I did in the last 20 years in my addiction. I've been skydiving, sailing, surfing, whitewater rafting. We have such a great local recovery community. They're always down to do whatever. I'm like, yeah, let's get a group of 20 of us and go do this. And
I love it.
Jump on, yeah.
That's a big thing. When I started looking at the sober curator, I was thinking like, this is so cool. Like, how can I meet some of these people? And I really got sort of, I started fantasizing about like these sober things that I could do and events and people I could meet. And because I'm a pretty extroverted person and I really like to socialize and I love to meet new people. And so I reached out to the editor, and her name is Elise Bryson. And I said, I just love this magazine, and like, what could I do? And I was sort of thinking she might do like a sober spotlight on me, which is what is part of there's a column on, sort of interviewing people in recovery. And she had said, well, there's an open column that was started and, no one has really picked it up, and you could do that. And I said, well, the only thing I'm really good at, like, I'm not an artist, I'm a nurse. I'm very sciencey, but one thing I know a lot about is fashion. And she was like, there you go. That's it. That's the column. And she happens to live in Seattle, which is not too far from me. So, when you meet someone in recovery that you just click with instantly, you just know, like that's my girl. And so it felt right to do this. And so I've been writing the column for the last, I don't know, 4 months, 5 months or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's been fun. And like you said, I get to do things sober. I have way more of a social life than I did when I was drinking because I was such a mess. And like in the end, no one wanted to invite me anywhere anyways, I mean, so my life is full now, and I get to show up, and that is really cool.
It's one of the beautiful things about recovery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what is the release frequency? How often do you guys release episodes? Or I don't know. Episode's probably not the right word.
Yeah. I write my column monthly. Right now, the entire Sober Curator site is being updated. So they're going to a new format that's quicker, and it's a little bit more intuitive, and it's basically upgraded. It's better technology, a better format, and it'll be easier to find things. And so the whole site's being updated, and I think it should be done in the next week or so. And then my November column will come out. But I just write it monthly. I imagine I could contribute more, but I work full time, and I'm doing this program for nurses, and I also am leading meetings. And this is, I try not to spread myself too thin. So, and the other piece to it is that, so I want to show fashion, right? So I have to take pictures, and I'm trying to photograph the clothes, but I'm the photographer and the model. And I don't know what I'm doing. So, here's me fumbling. The point is to show the clothes, but, this is just me doing this as a sort of a volunteer thing. So I don't have anybody to, help me. And my husband's certainly not going to stand around and take my photo. He might take one really ugly one and then walk away because he's game, and he'll leave me with like the world's ugliest picture. So I'm taking my own photos, wearing my own clothes, right? I'm just grabbing out of my closet and putting stuff on, and it's, it's sort of amateur, but I love it. And I'm trying to show people you can have fun in sobriety. And also, we change so much through the course of our recovery. I don't know about you, but when I first got sober, I was like, I don't even know what my style is. Like, who am I? I felt like I looked at my clothes and I was like, I wouldn't wear that. Like, what are you, some kind of bar slut? No, you can't wear. I mean, my whole sense of self was weird. My taste in music was weird. My appearance, everything about me. And so I changed so rapidly that I really feel like the way we dress is sort of like a representation of that. And so I find it to be a nice creative way to kind of show my progress and my changes throughout my recovery.
Okay.
Two dudes who are sitting there like, yeah, we just have a t-shirt.
Right.
Yeah. It took me all up to 2 minutes to find this shirt for this show.
I mean, how did you pick out those accessories? I need to know
it was tough. It was tough.
I hear you.
No, but I can agree with the whole changing, and I mean, I still listen to weird music, and I feel like I'm still kind of a weird person, even after almost 7 years. But yeah, I connect with the piece that you were talking about there, about just like finding your identity, figuring out who you are, with the drugs and the alcohol out of the picture. It's like, who am I? Like when I first got clean, I had all this free time. I had lost my job, and all I was doing was going to meetings, and it's like, okay, what do I do now? What do I don't have any hobbies, because my only hobby before was getting high. Like, what do I do now? What do I like? So there's like that whole thing of like discovering yourself and figuring out what you like and don't like. And like you said, it really is. And I think that's part of the reason that so many of us use like the Phoenix as a symbol, because it's like that rebirth, and we get to start over. We get to figure out what we want to do with our lives.
Yeah. And I think it's a little different for women because, unfortunately we live in a world where so much is for women is sort of based on like how you wear your hair, your makeup, or your clothes, or what have you. And not that appearance is everything. It's not, but they say like fashion is instant language. And, I think for women, the way that we dress and put ourselves together can be sort of more demonstrative of how we show up in the world. I know my husband has 8,000 t-shirts, and every day it's like black or blue or black or blue. But I wear completely different things all the time. And I go through different phases where I'm like, I think I'm kind of like this, or I think I'm kind of like this. But a lot of it's just finding myself, because I think I drank for the better part of a decade and a half. And by the time I got sober, I didn't know who the hell I was. And my life revolved around the bar scene, and, the things you wear and the way that you show up for yourself, is all different in that, especially for women, when you're getting all ready for the nightlife. And so it's also been kind of fun for me because I'm a nurse, I work in a psychiatric facility. It's not like I get to glam it up a whole lot. And the work that I do is very serious. And I talk about mental health and addiction and medications and treatment and things for a living. So I get to focus on something sort of fun and frivolous in my free time. And that's nice for me.
Yeah, working at the hospital, I get to wear scrubs for 40 hours out of the week. So I show up in shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops.
Yeah. Yeah. Not super glamorous.
Yeah. But you're right. You coming out of addiction. You don't know who you are anymore. I mean, I struggled to find new hobbies because my old hobbies all revolved around bars, shooting pool in bars, and playing spades with my friends, drinking beer. So I've had to pretty much reinvent myself and find things that I really enjoy doing. And I found that through the community, it really helped. I mean, when I was in early sobriety, I was sitting around just doing the meetings and nothing else. I was afraid to go out. And then I took a chance and volunteered for a veteran sea kayaking class and totally enjoyed it. So I'm signing up for like everything that they offer, and I'm meeting other people, some clean, some still out there, but I'm bonding and making new friends. So that's really helped me.
I love that. And like the willingness to meet new people and branch out in sobriety has sort of spread into the rest of my life as well. My husband is also a veteran, and we recently hosted a little neighborhood gathering, like open house. Like if you're a veteran and you live in this neighborhood, come over. We want to know you. We just want to make sure we're here to support you. Like we can't do this alone, and those are things like I would have never been that person had I not found recovery and sort of the beauty of building a community, because I couldn't have gotten sober alone. And so now I face big problems by, turning to the group, and whether it's mental health or addiction or just, things like what veterans go through, I'm more likely to reach out and say, let's do this together, because sobriety and recovery has taught me so much about how valuable the community is. I mean, your community will save you,
Yeah, especially true with vets. I mean, we lose 22 a day to suicide.
Yep.
And the scary part about that is over half of them aren't in any type of treatment. I mean, if they're not going to the VA, then they're definitely not going anywhere else.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons. I mean, they say there's a lack of trust. I mean, I've dealt with a lot of it personally, in my own treatment. And it's like, I've been through like 5 shrinks over the last, 5 years. And it's like, they keep throwing new ones in there. I'm like, well, how am I supposed to bond with them to open up to trust them without holding back, And that's what the reason was for my my veteran spiritual retreat this weekend, was to talk about stuff like that, moral injury. And it worked out really well.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, I think if the power of a community, and I still to this day I go to Sober Mom Squad, and I also joined another group called the Luckiest Club, and that is those meetings are online. I'm not sure if you've heard of Laura McCowan's book, We Are the Luckiest, but she started a sobriety group that is, you do pay for it, but it's a small amount of money. But there's like 4 meetings a day, 7 days a week. And there's hundreds of people in these meetings. And I've gotten a chance to not only go to meetings all throughout the pandemic, but also to meet people in real life that I've met online. And that's been super cool. Same with the Sober Mom Squad. It's, it's the internet, but ultimately I'm meeting people. I started an Instagram page at the beginning of the pandemic. I didn't really know how to use Instagram, but I started a page, and I decided I'm going to recover out loud. I'm going to just go out loud with this. My story is super shameful, but I also can't change it, right? Like I'm here now. It happened. And I can't change what I did. All I can do is change how I tackle it now. And so on my Instagram page, I just put, not too much, not like, like oversharing, but I make sure that I put it out there that I'm sober and that I am a sober advocate and that I, of course I write for the Sober Curator, but it just really helps with stigma, I think. And it helps me to overcome my own shame. Like I said, like, this is who I am, this is what I did. This is my past. And this is me sort of living with it now and reinventing myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, you had to go through what you went through just to become who you are today. I mean, in some ways, I'm kind of grateful for, my past, because I never would have found this better version of myself if I didn't go through what I went through. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, to say I would do it all over again is a tiny bit of a stretch. Yeah. But I love the person that I am becoming. I show up for myself. I am honest, legit. I am accountable. I think my boss even said the other day he could trust me implicitly. And those are things that no one says about me in active addiction. And, I'm there for my family and my friends. And I've just become a more true version of myself that I would have never gotten here. And I would have never entered the field of mental health as a nurse either. I mean, that was just something that was never on my radar. And I really feel like it's my calling and I love it now.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And I'd be curious to know, since you're in the field, and I've asked a few other people this, in the past, but what percentage of people that you see struggling with substance abuse disorder are also, I guess the terminology would be dual diagnosed, or also have some sort of mental health issue?
90%.
Yeah, this guy.
Maybe 97. Really? I mean, and it's so hard. Like, what came first, the chicken or the egg, with a lot of it? Are we self-medicating anxiety, depression, paranoia, delusions? And it's also on a spectrum too. Some people's mental illness is completely chronic and persistent and crippling. And other people's just sort of interfere with their daily life. But either way, people will self-medicate, right? And when I look at addiction now, especially in behavioral health, and not to normalize it, but I really feel like it's such a normal human reaction to self-soothe that it does not surprise me what people do to calm themselves, right? When someone says, I was living on the streets, I was this or that, and I used a lot of heroin. Of course you did. And so I approach addiction like it's a very normal human thing to reach for something that either amps you up if you're down, or calms you down if you're overexcited, or maybe quiets the voices, or comforts you if you're sleeping on a cold street. So yeah, it's easily 90%, maybe more. But it's really hard sometimes to tell what came first.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And there's more research now about the effects of drug and alcohol on the brain. So we can see, especially like one thing that comes to mind is cannabis use in younger people, especially young boys. Adolescents will see use earlier in their life, maybe 10, 11, 12, and they have their first psychotic break by 17. And it's sort of like, how much did that THC play into cognitive changes or structural change, whatever it is? And maybe it sort of lowered the threshold of what was already pre-existing there. And so we have more studies now showing kind of what substances do. In fact, this Friday, I'm taking an exam to become a certified addictions registered nurse. It's just an extra sort of feather in my cap, but I've been studying a lot of these things. It's really fascinating.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of treatment programs do you have in your department? I mean, do you guys deal with substance use disorder, or is just mental health?
Just mental health.
Just mental health?
It's pretty hard to get credentialed for co-occurring. But what we do is we screen, we sort of do a brief intervention, and then we refer and get people outsourced to local treatment facilities where they can either go inpatient or outpatient. We don't typically take people who are really deep in the detox. Like we have someone detox first before coming to us. We'll take people sort of into like a mild withdrawal, but not like, heavy detox. And so, but we do, a lot of people, their relapse will occur sort of simultaneously with them stopping their psych meds and or quitting, therapy. And so we do talk about cessation of drugs and alcohol, even though we're not really there to treat that piece of it. And we hire people with lived experience that will share their information with clients. And so we do have a lot of people that are in recovery, staff that are in recovery.
Okay. How's how's fentanyl, the epidemic out there? Because you're on the West Coast. It's horrible. Yeah, it's horrible out here.
Horrible. It's in pressed pills. I mean, it's everywhere. And, we see an unprecedented amount of overdoses. In fact, we are starting to give out Narcan kits where I work when people discharge, even though they maybe don't even admit to drug use, but it's sort of like, if we know that someone is going to go live and experience homelessness, we're just getting Narcan kits in to send home with them or wherever they're going, because it's everywhere. It's laced in so many things. I have heard of communities dispensing fentanyl test strips for people in active addiction as sort of a method of harm reduction, so they can test different substances to see. But I don't have access to those. But I think that wouldn't be a bad idea. We have it's horrible. We have a horrible homeless population in Olympia. Like I imagine is everywhere.
Yeah, it's everywhere. I mean, it's
horrible.
It's really bad out here too.
Like lined the streets, campers, people. I've lived in this community a while. I've never seen it like this. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I think the final number, I think the CDC numbers were 96,000 overdoses in the last year.
Yeah.
And so I'm expecting it to still climb higher next year, because this fentanyl is just out of control.
It's everywhere. It's in everything. It's really sad. And it's really scary too. Because even people who rarely use or are maybe going to just recreationally use after a party, you hear it in the news, several celebrities die after an event. And it's like, maybe that was their once a year use, and they're laced with fentanyl. And so it's really scary. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Our ERs are packed, not only because of COVID, but because of substance use and mental health and the sort of overwhelming homeless population that we have right now. I can see that statistic. Yeah.
Let me give a shout out to Jeff Vickers for the fast stats.
Yeah.
Author of the sober slogan.
Nice. Is he our one viewer? I'm just kidding.
He's the one commenter.
One commenter.
Oh. The other viewer might be my mom. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Jeff's doing starting a podcast this Saturday, I believe. 7:00, Jeff?
I love it. I think the more open forums, podcasts, lives, stuff on social media, I think the recovery community is sort of rallying right now, and we're becoming quite the force. The amount of people that are recovering out loud and that are speaking up. I think it's just awesome to watch. I was just sort of getting chills watching the countdown to this when you were showing the recovery stories and people holding the signs. And that's why I keep showing up to things like this, because I love, love, love to see the recovery movement, in social media and out there on TV and just various platforms. So any podcast or book, I mean, I'm here for it.
I know, if you think about it, the data I found was there are 23 million people in active recovery right now. If we ever got organized, Washington would not be able to ignore us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm here for it. Yes. Yeah. The Sober Curator is really awesome because it's free. It's a lifestyle magazine. And it just really, if you're going to scroll, you might as well sit and scroll through some of that content. And there's some really fascinating creators and writers that contribute. And there's even a guy on there that does tastings for NA beers and sort of, does kind of a breakdown of which ones are working and whatnot. And there's mocktail recipes. And I just think there's really nothing like it out there in terms of recovery magazines. There's the Recovery Today magazine. I mean, it's an online magazine, but I think it's mostly celebrities that they have on the cover or interview. And I am excited for Brad Pitt, but I want to know some real folk. And so I love the concept that the Sober Curator brings, that we can contribute as, sort of civilians, and that it brings that content out to everyone.
I'm in Recovery Today magazine. I actually write an article for him now.
But I mean, it's mostly famous people, right? You wrote a book. You're somewhat of a public figure.
We do, me and my awesome admin, Chrissy, we do the sober birthday shout outs. It should be in the next magazine.
Isn't it mostly people that are already public figures that end up in the magazine, though?
Technically, yes. I don't know why Rob wanted to interview me. I guess because the veteran angle, but he's a cool guy. We're gonna have him on here someday.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I subscribed to it a while ago, and I think there's room for multiple sober magazines to be out there, for sure. But I did notice when I subscribed to that one that it was a lot of celebrities, and I thought, gosh, I'd really like to see something where I sort of identify. And so, but I think there's space for and all of it. Just like in recovery, I think there's space for all types of recovery modalities. You're a low-key sober celebrity. I love it. He's your biggest fan.
That's my dog right there. So yes. we actually, I was in Vegas for Mobilized Recovery in September, and Jeff was getting married, and they were going to Vegas. So I took him and his new wife out to dinner.
Nice.
Meet up. Yeah, that's what I love about the sober community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
long lost brother now.
Yes, and you get to meet people in real life that are just they become family, and you understand each other. And I have better friends now in recovery than I ever had.
Absolutely. You can leave your wallet behind.
Yeah. You could just not bring your wallet.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, that was funny about Recovery Today. I was like,
no, I mean, I think, like I said, there's space for all of it. I think it's all good. I read the Recovery Today sometimes too. But I like the fact that there's some stories from people that, that aren't necessarily a public figure. I mean, in a sense, you are kind of a public figure. You wrote a book, and it seems to be selling quite well. You know, I think it's available at Target. That's big, right? Anything that's for sale at Target is like mainstream.
I guess. Oh, there's also a recovery journal. It comes out in
Nice.
May. Actually, I have a subscription to them too. They interviewed one of my mobilized recovery buddies last month,
Nice.
Marshall Mercer.
Nice.
So yeah, it's getting out there. Like you were saying, I'd rather hear about everyday people bouncing back, and then some Hollywood celeb that
Well, I mean, it's also good to show celebrities recovering, though, because that makes a huge impact on the general public. I mean, look at Jessica Simpson. She just came out being 4 years sober, and it is all over social media. Like, you would think that, she just ran her first marathon and gave birth to quintuplets and has 40 years. I mean, she just like is so big. But I think it's great because people look up to celebrities and they sort of glamorize them, and we need that. We need to see that. I know it helps me because I always think when I come across someone that I really admire that is a public figure, they always end up being someone that is sober. And I always say, like, the sober people do the coolest shit, right? They're the best actors and actresses, the funniest, the best songwriters. So it is good to see that, I think, for sure. And, some of my favorite celebrities are sober. So at Recovery Today, you can interview some normal people. Some podunk civilians.
I guess in a way, it does make the media does cover that more than say, you or me. Oh yeah, I'm hitting 4 years sobriety. Like, okay.
Yeah, who cares?
Brad Pitt, yeah, I got 30 days. Okay.
Yeah, right. Like, I'm some washed up nurse from Olympia. Like, nobody cares if I'm sober, right? It's. But I love hearing other people's sober stories because it just gives me hope, and it also reminds me that we need each other's stories.
We do, absolutely. Brett, you want to do the your little thing you do with the book?
Oh, well, I was going to see if you wanted to announce it so we could have some more people jump in and possibly win a copy of the Addiction Manifesto by the one and only world famous pseudo celebrity J.R. Weaver. If you would like to be entered for a chance to win a copy here in just a couple of minutes, all you have to do is comment hashtag Addiction Manifesto in the comments and hit enter, and you are in the drawing for a free copy of JR's book. So we'll wait a couple more minutes and give that away. And yeah, thank you guys for sticking around through the episode. And Kate, thank you for coming on today and sharing with us. It was absolutely incredible.
Amazing story.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And I might go to Target and just buy your book.
Or you could win a copy.
You can win a copy.
Do I count? Woo-hoo! Actually, I would like to read it because my husband is a veteran, and I think there's a lot of good there that we would identify with.
I mean, I see. I'm blessed to work at the VA. I see the old me in so many vets coming out today. I mean, you got to think we've been at war for what, 20 years now, and there's so many vets coming back with issues, and it's like I'm kind of glad that the VA is getting away from just prescribing pills to actually going with a recovery model type treatments instead of because that's how it was for so long. And you're feeling this way, here, take these pills. Now they're actually talking to you, and they got peer support. So it's hopefully we've learned from the past.
Yeah, and when we come out of this pandemic, we're going to see just a huge wave too of people who struggled or struggle or are struggling now.
Yeah, this pandemic's been rough on the recovery community.
God.
I mean, I heard to I don't want to say that, but a friend of mine went to a meeting tonight and they said that place was packed. I'm like, oh wow, so now I get to go out there. Actually, I get to share my story Saturday at a local group, and Thursday I'm doing something with Hazelton.
Nice.
Yeah, they're doing a book on veterans, and I'm doing an interview with them. So I'm excited about that on Veterans Day, and I think that's my my fourth year, my 11/10. Is that 11/10?
Yeah. No, 11/11.
Okay. Yeah, I remember saying, "Yeah, I'll never go. I'll be using drugs for the rest of my life." I remember that in my head back when I was 30 days, 60 days sober.
Yeah.
I'm glad I was wrong. I mean, I love life now. I get to meet cool people like you, Brad. I mean, everybody needs a friend with a big furry red beard.
Everybody needs a friend that knows how to work their computer.
Oh, stop.
You want to do the giveaway now?
Yeah, let's do it. So far, there's only been 4 people that have entered, which there's more than 4 people commenting in the comments. So I don't know what's going on. I guess they don't want to win.
No,
yeah,
some of them already.
I already have it as well, so I didn't enter.
I entered, so I'm just trying to save on shipping.
All right.
J.L. Weaver.
All right, Roberto.
Congratulations, buddy. I'll get it mailed out to you this weekend.
Awesome. I don't know why it swapped to a different view. I haven't seen him in the comments in the last few minutes.
I'll track him down. But thank you so much, Kate. I really enjoyed hearing your story and where you've been and what you're doing today. That's some good stuff right there.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was great to meet you guys and to do this. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
Brett, let's hear that sign off, man.
Oh, all right. All right. We'll get it done. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, I do also have another podcast, and kind of going off of some of the topics that we've talked about tonight. My guest on Wednesday is Narcan Nate, and we talk about harm reduction and the importance of Narcan. So if that's a subject that you're interested in, or you want to learn more about that, I'd ask you to take a listen to Wednesday's episode. It'll be coming out Wednesday morning. As always, we'll have the audio version of tonight's live stream, as well as the past live streams available in podcast form. Just search Recovery Revolution Live for that. So if you're busy and you can't sit down and watch the full length video on Facebook or wherever, you can listen to it, pop your headphones in, and still get some of that great recovery content. And as always, guys, remember, progress, not perfection. Until next time, I'm Brett, and this has been Recovery Revolution Live.